Are you new to audio but don't know where or how to get started? In this video, I will give you the strategies and guidance you'll need to avoid obstacles and get yourself started the right way. Consider this the golden blueprint for your newfound passion. What's up, friends? Mike from Audio Architects here, and I am ready to help. Coming from a world of gaming, I sometimes relied on the Nintendo Power Magazine, player's guides, walkthroughs, and yes, sometimes, only sometimes, cheat codes to get through the levels of some, really challenging games. This made my experience less frustrating as well as much more enjoyable. That's my goal with this video. Not to play video games, but I want to give you a walkthrough of what to expect when firing up level 1 on your voyage in the world of audio. Let's get started. Before you get too ahead of yourselves, you must understand your budget and try your best to stay within that budget. You must also mitigate your expectations and know within yourself that there isn't a best quality or an end game in audio, because audio is ever changing. There will always be something better or newer coming out each year that you'll be absolutely drooling over. So whether you're spending under $1,000 or over $100,000, you must appreciate what you have, be thankful for what it offers you, and maintain it to last a long time. I know audio enthusiasts with entire systems they have preserved for over 40 plus years that still perform well. Focused first and foremost on what you are looking for, what media you'll be consuming, and under what listening conditions before you make your first move. The age of the hi-fi shops and brick and mortars is slowly ending. So, suppose you're lucky enough to have one near you. In that case, I encourage you to stop by and listen to some products within the budget you've allocated for your system, which, if you know me personally, a good chunk of the monies will be spent on a nice pair of speakers, because first and foremost, I love speakers and feel they will be the #1 factor in your listening experience aside from your room acoustics. However, be careful. The salespeople at some of these hi-fi shops are exceptionally well trained in the art of bait and switch. So be careful not to listen to them as much as you'll be trusting your own ears. If they start trying to sell you Cobra level snake oil, just walk away. Now, if you are like most of the world and don't have a hi-fi shop or even a Magnolia inside of Best Buy close by, most companies will offer a 30-day in-home trial, so buying online may be your best and or only option. This is way better anyways, because you get to listen to the product inside your own space rather than someone else's, which could very well change the acoustics and your experience altogether. Therefore, I will be insisting on room acoustics or room treatments because, in my opinion, aside from your speakers, improving the acoustics in your room will make a serious change in the way you enjoy your music. People often think there is something wrong with their system or a new product they just bought, when in fact, it's just their room playing tricks on their brain or on their ears. If you are looking to buy online and have an idea of what you're looking for, the obvious choice would be the manufacturer's website. But many manufacturers don't sell direct. Actually, most of them don't. They either have dealers, or you can go online to websites like Crutchfield, Just Audio, and Amazon, just to name a few outlets that will probably have what you want to buy. The cool thing about Just Audio is that they offer some vintage audio pieces if you're looking to build a classic vintage system. This is very rare for a dealer to do that. So if you are on a super conservative budget, there's nothing wrong with visiting your local thrift shops, garage and estate sales to look for hidden gems. Believe me, I have found plenty and I made a video about it. Hit it. Okay, so now that you know some spots to check out, let's move on to the products. As I just mentioned, speakers are of premier importance when beginning your voyage into this beautiful world of audio. So, of course, you will want the best your money can safely afford to buy. You are going to have to decide on a few things though. What kind of space are you working with? Because space will be the deciding factor on whether you get big speakers like a pair of huge floor standers or bookshelf speakers if you're in a smaller space like a small room or apartment. You know, there are a lot of manufacturers out there making their floor standers so thin nowadays they take up as much floor space as a bookshelf speaker on a stand. So that may not be an issue. However, if the speakers you choose aren't running full range, you need to make some room for a subwoofer to fill the low-end void that will need to be filled with beautiful, beautiful bass. Here are some options for bookshelf speakers and floor standing speakers at different price points. Starting with the Triangle Bro 3 is probably the best bang for the buck bookshelf speaker. It's an excellent starting point for anyone who wants a pleasing experience and a well-balanced sound signature. Next in line, there is kind of a tie between the Dali Oberon 3s and Aperion Audio Veris 3 Grand bookshelf speakers, where both speakers have bested many speakers in and above their price class in clarity, bass, and soundstage. If at any time I say a word you guys don't know, I have left a link in the description below of a glossary I created that will explain all these little niche audiophile terms that I have been unfortunately indoctrinated to say. I'll do my best to explain it without using too many of these words, as I hate using them myself. I would also consider the Wharfedale Lintons or the KEF LS50 Metas. The Lintons will give you a fuller range feeling from a mid-size speaker. It's not quite a bookshelf speaker and it's not quite a floor stander. It's just a weird size. The LS50 Metas by KEF have some of the most pleasing clarity I have ever heard in a speaker, but the low end is practically non-existent, so a subwoofer would be necessary. Inside my ears with a subwoofer, the KEF LS50 Metas offer a beautiful presentation. The LS50 Meta also has a powered variant. A powered speaker will allow you to skip the next segment since you purchased a speaker with built-in amplification, which is cool. Okay, so let's move on to floor standers. First on the list would be the KLH Model 5s. I dig the vintage look and the fantastic full range sound. They have incredible bass and I enjoy my time when I play just about anything on them. Following would be the Aperion Audio Veris Concert Towers. I mainly use these for home theater since they are powerhouses and they look really good. The deep bass and clarity are incredible and they are very versatile if you want to use them for 2-channel listening and have them double as your home theater speakers. Lastly, I will encourage you guys to check out the used market for a pair of older floor standers. I'm a massive proponent of vintage floor standers because back then, they were way more full range since the advent of subwoofers hadn't really hit the mainstream as they have now. You don't need to follow these suggestions. I know you won't be disappointed though if you choose these speakers that I mentioned. However, I suggest listening to as many speakers as you can to better understand how different brands voice their speakers and which ones you feel work best with your listening style and music preference. Let's move on to amplification. The amplifier is essential unless you bypass this part and went with the pair of powered speakers, which is totally okay. However, if you are looking for an amplifier for your new speakers, you must consider a few things. What is the sensitivity and impedance of your speakers? This will tell you how power hungry they are and if you need to keep them well fed with lots of juice. Just to clarify, the speaker's sensitivity is measured by how loud the speakers can get when fed with 1 watt of power at 1 meter distance from the speaker. Speaker impedance measures the amount of opposition to current flow in an electrical circuit. The speaker impedance is usually measured in ohms and it's essential for amplifiers because mismatched impedance could very well cause distortion or sometimes even worse results. For example, a 4 ohm speaker requires more power from an amplifier than an 8 ohm speaker to produce the same loudness of sound. This is due to the relationship between voltage, current, and resistance in electronic circuits. A lower impedance means a greater current for a given voltage. I personally like speakers with high sensitivity, so I have more options for amplification just in case, I get a wild hair, I want to play around with a tube amplifier, which aren't very, they don't produce that much wattage. Since you are just starting out, I recommend going with an integrated amplifier, which is the preamplifier, or more so your control center for volume, tone, source selection, etc., and your power amplifier put together. You could theoretically buy these separately if you wish to do so. However, I feel starting out, integrated amplifiers are more accessible and free up space for other components and sources. Okay, so the first amp I will suggest is the upgraded version of what I started with, the Yamaha AS801. It has everything you need to get yourself started, is reasonably priced, and its little brother, the AS501, has been quite good to me. It's the first amplifier I bought when I started this channel. It has all the inputs to connect a turntable, it features an internal DAC to connect a streamer, and comes with plenty of features to make your music sound great. Another integrated amplifier I do enjoy is obviously the Cambridge Audio Evo 150. It's right there. It's tiny, but it's a bit of a price jump from the Yamaha. However, there are many amplifiers in between the Yamaha and the Evo 150, like Cambridge's other offerings, as well as amplifiers from like Rotel. If you're looking for a super high-end option and you're just shelling out that cash, check out Boulder amplifiers. They look amazing, come feature-rich, and are made here in Colorado and sound fantastic. Amplification is important, but not incredibly critical. So if there is an area where you can go with something lesser, this might be where you have a little bit of wiggle room. Please don't go too low, because after you dip from a particular financial threshold with amplifiers, they tend to clip out and sound like a distorted dumpster fire. So just make sure they have enough juice to power those nice new speakers. Now, let's jump into sources and DACs. This might be the most straightforward or most challenging decision you'll make. What are you? Are you a vinyl person? Do you prefer the quality and convenience of a CD? Or are you only interested in streaming music? This will dictate what you will buy for your source of musical enjoyment. I use all three. Obviously some more than others, but I like a well-rounded system. First and foremost, I'd start with looking at a U-Turn Audio Orbit for a turntable. It's what I use. Well, use sparingly, but it sounds good and it's super inexpensive. If you're really into the vinyl trend, get yourself something more serious like a Technics, a Project, or a Mobile Fidelity turntable and impress all of your fun friends. For CD players, I would go with a Cambridge AXC35 or Rotel CD11 Tribute as a starter and work my way up from there. I enjoy the aesthetics and performance of the Premier DD15 CD Transport since I use an external DAC. Okay, DACs. This is a tough one. Suppose you will be streaming from like a computer, a standalone streamer like the Bluesound Node or Premier MP5, or playing music from a CD transport, which basically just transports the sound to your DAC. In that case, you will probably want and or need an external DAC or digital to analog converter. I will be straight with you about DACs. I have a tiny little DAC called the Topping E30, and it runs around 130 bucks, which is cheap for a DAC. I couldn't tell a substantial audible improvement until I stepped it up to a DAC nearing $1,000, the Denafrips Aries 2. I didn't hear much of a change until I just tested the Hollow May DAC, This device is over $5,000 and it has changed the way I listen to music. It's that much of an improvement, and I'm not exaggerating or being ridiculous. But as you could see from my personal experience, I would put money on the fact that between that $130 topping and $1,000 or more DAC, you may prefer the way the topping sounds because it's a device meant to do a job. If the lesser priced one like the topping does the job well enough, it becomes difficult to tell the difference between them unless you are doing a seriously controlled A/B blind test with headphones. So unless you have $5,000 to drop on the HoloMay, which you should, I would think something like the topping E30 is a perfect way to dip your toes in the water. It will sound better than most onboard DACs, and it won't crush your budget. If your budget is expansive, just buy the HoloMay and thank me later. Suppose you aren't running a legit full-range speaker, which is rare to find these days since every speaker seems to be just barely wide enough to house their 6.5-inch drivers. In that case, you will need a subwoofer to satisfy the low-end bass your music will demand from you, especially if you like bass-heavy music like electronica, hip-hop, or classical with cannons just firing in the background. I have a few suggestions. I would stick with a sealed 12-inch subwoofer for the best clarity in your bass. Most sealed 12s with good power from a plate amp punch deep enough to cover anything you'll want to throw at it. Now, if you're a crazy bass head and have the space, go for a 15. Why not? However, here are a few subwoofers I would recommend. The Stark Sound SW12 is a fantastic traditional subwoofer, reasonably priced, and has just a beautiful impact. No crazy features, just straight up bass. Another subwoofer worth looking into at a similar price point, under $1,000, is the SVS SB2000. A lot of cutting edge tech and excellent bass in SVS subwoofers in general. The SVS SB4000 is incredibly underrated and should be in everyone's home at only $1,800 and can get as low as 8 Hertz, which at that point you feel the bass more than you hear it. Want something a bit higher end? Go for the Perlison D12S I just reviewed. Hit it. Which has incredible technology built in, is a beautiful enclosure on the outside, and performed better than I would have anticipated. Measurements on that sub were gorgeous. Whichever way you go with a subwoofer, make sure it hits that sweet spot you want. Placement is critical. You might need to try placing it in different positions within your room to get the best bass response in your particular seating position. If you have the space, I would get 2 subs for your left and your right speaker to make sure the sound is consistent coming from both sides. I personally love balance in my life, guys, as I do with my music and my sound, so this just makes sense to me. This is one of the most important factors in your new system. Whether you are going the inexpensive route and placing the foam panels on the wall, I got a video for that too, hit it, or are going with the expensive acoustic panels that look super nice, anything you do will be an improvement to not doing anything at all. I know it's probably getting a bit overwhelming by now, all this information I'm throwing at you, but this is something that you cannot ignore. I understand some rooms are multi-purpose, and perhaps dressing them with a ton of acoustic panels is not in the cards. However, there are small, visually pleasing solutions that will help your cause. God, even popcorn ceilings and heavy curtains help with acoustics, sound absorption, echo, and noise reduction. Where there's a will, there's a way, you guys, and you should find it. If you are legitimately just getting into audio, you will see several forums online just claiming cables are life, and others are saying otherwise. It's this big battle. I chose to stay out of this altogether. I buy cables I feel are made with suitable quality components, but aren't outrageously priced. Check out World's Best Cables on Amazon and get yourself a nice pair of speaker cables, RCA cables, and subwoofer cables, and XLR if you need them. For all your other cables like optical or digital coax to connect your streamer to your DAC, AudioQuest's entry-level offerings should be more than enough to work well with your system. If you want something more elegant because you're spending just a ridiculous ton of money on your system and you have these, $100,000 speakers and you want your cables to adorn your speakers with just ridiculous amounts of elegance, then go for an expensive pair of nice looking interconnects. Look, I'm not here to judge you or tell you how to spend your money. You will do you at the end of the day, and I respect that. So I think that should be good for now to get things going. As I think of more things to share, I will do so. You can find all the links to the products we discussed in the description below. I know this one was a little long, but I wanted to be thorough and help as much as possible. I wish someone had done this for me when I first started way back when. I had to go it alone with no golden blueprint, no nothing. I discovered all of this by trial and error, which gets expensive. I suggested the brands I did because I find them to be good options for you that will provide the quality you deserve. However, I encourage you to go out there and discover your favorite brands and products and come back and tell me what you decided on and what you chose. Thank you all for joining me. If you are already subscribed, it is greatly appreciated. I have an online shop where I sell audio-inspired t-shirts. This is one of them. It's actually the 40th anniversary CD shirt and other merch and hoodies and stuff like that to help to support the channel. I encourage you to check it out, buy some stuff, offer ideas for future designs. If you're new to Audio Architects and like it so far, I encourage you to watch some more of my videos and see if my channel is the right fit for you. See if you click with my vibe. And I would love for you to hit that thumbs up and end up subscribing and joining me on my journey in hi-fi. Thank you again for spending some time with me. Take care, and we'll see you very, very soon.